All right, this article is coming to us from Las Vegas, and it says Landlord woes. Tenant trashes home after not paying rent. What a surprise. So, a lot of landlords are still facing a lot of problems due to the eviction moratoriums, and tenants are going to be tenants. You know, there's going to be bad tenants always, but when you have a bad tenant during the eviction moratorium, that strikes us twice as hard, because then we're not getting rent for an extended period of time. For the case of some landlords, that's over a year. And then the tenant will trash the home on top of it, leaving a landlord, you know, like myself, a small landlord, can be put out of business by this sort of thing. But let's get into this article. After a bad experience with a renter, property owner Michelle Stiles has concerns about the Las Vegas housing market and how the current eviction moratorium will impact landlords in the long run. Last year, Michelle rented a home in northwest area of Las Vegas out to a tenant who proved she was employed and had more than $24,000 in the bank. As soon as Governor Steve Sisolak ordered the eviction moratorium in Nevada, her tenant stopped paying all of her rent and the utilities. Michelle says she waited about 5 months for assistance from the government. So this tenant had $24,000 in the bank when they originally rented the place and had employment, but the second that the eviction moratorium went into place, this tenant was 100% unable to pay the rent. Now, I'm not saying that, this tenant didn't lose their job, but the whole point of having the savings, the whole point of us landlords checking to see, what the bank accounts and the savings are like for a tenant is, well, in case you have some kind of job loss or something happens, you should be able to at least cover the rent for a few months. But in the case of this tenant just stopped paying altogether. And that's what we hate, This eviction moratorium put into place a system where the tenant had no accountability. The tenant didn't have to pay anything, and they chose not to. I didn't see any rent for quite some time, and then the CARES Act came into play. So basically, I had to manage without until August, when finally the CARES money came through, Stiles said. The tenant's lease was not renewed, but they left the house with thousands of dollars worth of damage when she moved out. The tenant left holes on almost every door in the house, ripped out cabinets, flooded and stained the carpets, left cigarette butts, moldy food, and piles of trash everywhere. So fortunately, this landlord was able to get some CARES Act funds to help make themselves whole, but that didn't cover all the damage that this tenant left. So, gosh, I can't even imagine having to go through and, try to cover $10,000 plus of damages. I don't know how much the damage was, but I imagine it was around 10 grand, after the tenant just totally trashed their property. There's really no repercussion. What am I going to do? There's nothing I can do. I can't go to small claims court. Do I think the time and energy is going to get me anywhere? I don't, Stiles said. Well, I disagree. If the damage was enough, then it's worth paying an attorney to try to seek some sort of compensation, especially knowing that this tenant had some money in their bank account. A lot of the times, though, if the damage is only a couple grand, maybe $2 or $3 grand, it's not worth it, Stiles wonders how many renters may be taking advantage of the eviction protections and how many landlords will suffer as a result. She's concerned that a perceived lack of protections for landlords will cut them out of the housing market entirely, leaving less homes for rent. And that's exactly what's going to happen. A lot of landlords are going to decide, hey, I don't want to be a landlord anymore. I'm going to sell my single-family rental to a owner-occupier, meaning that's a rental that's just off the market. That means that renters are going to have more trouble finding properties to rent because a lot of landlords just don't want to be in this business anymore. Myself, I will deal with these problems as they occur. I don't look to get out of the business anytime soon, but there's a lot of people who own just one, maybe two rental properties, and they're just going to say to themselves, screw this, this is too much trouble. I just want to get out of it. And I don't want to see that happen. Actually, I do, because that means I can rent my properties for more. That means that I'm going to charge more rent, and I'm going to get better tenants in there, and those bad tenants won't be able to find a place to rent, and unfortunately that might push some people into homelessness, but that's pretty much their own fault, so I don't feel bad for them. I don't think landlords are this evil entity that maybe people think they are. They're real people too, just trying to make it, get ahead, and this is where they chose to invest. Let's see here. There is still a huge pot of rental assistance money that is waiting to be distributed. If a landlord can prove a tenant is claiming eviction protections fraudulently, Berchtold says you may have to take it to court, but you don't need to hire a lawyer. He suggests visiting the self-help center in the courthouse to find all the eviction documents. If a landlord has evidence that a tenant is claiming those protections and really not entitled to them, the landlord can still go ahead with an eviction and challenge that in court and ask the judge to make a determination, Berchtold said. So, yeah, at least in Nevada, you can go through that sort of process. I'm not sure if those sort of protections exist for landlords in all states. I know for a fact that at least in Jackson County, Missouri, where I own 4 duplexes, the eviction court was completely shut down for a long time. It might still be shut down, so you can't exactly do anything if you have a bad tenant who's fraudulently claiming that they can't, that they are that they need eviction protections.